Hello guys, my name is Prowz and this is part 2 in my Comet Rogue guides. In this part I'll be going through my talent and glyph choices and when and where I'll be switching my talent and glyphs and my thoughts in the process. So we'll start with the talents, I suppose, and with the tier 1. For Comet Rogue, Shadow Focus is what you'll want almost all the time. It's the top one for DPS. Night Stalker is useful in when you're questing or just want to move faster, like when I'm soloing Black Temple, for example. I'll use Night Stalker in conjunction with Burst of Speed to just move at basically mount speed through the entire dungeon. But for raiding, Shadow Focus is what you'll want basically all of the time. For the second one, I usually use Comet Readiness. This is a tier that's never really that important, but Comet Readiness is a very nice defensive cooldown and just all around nice to have more to feel secure. Nerve Strike might be useful sometimes. If you can stun some important targets, it will reduce the target's damage dealt by 50% on non-player targets and 25% on player targets. So it's useful if you can stun something important, but generally speaking you'll want Comet Readiness, and Deadly Throw you basically never use. For this tier, the third tier, this is a more interesting tier of talents. I usually use Sheet Death, since it's just a nice extra sort of defensive cooldown that you don't even have to think about. Just if you die, you don't die, basically. A blow that would reduce you below, would kill you, will instead not reduce you below 10% of your maximum health, and you will have 85% reduced damage taken for 3 seconds. So it basically saves your life once every 90 seconds, which is the internal cooldown of this ability. And just all around nice to have. If you fuck up, if you use your killing spree ability in the wrong place, or if something just hits you that if the boss aggroes you, anything, it's just really nice to have. Second one is Leeching Poison. Generally speaking, you don't want to use this in raids. It's got a nice self healing. It's very nice for when you're soling stuff and you're questing and leveling and things like that, but the healing is not going to be that helpful in most raid encounters, and the other talents are really more effective at doing what to do. And then we got Elusiveness, which is the second choice that I would consider very viable for raiding, more viable than Sheet Death even in some cases. It reduces all your damage taken by 30% for 7 seconds when you use Feint. Which basically means that you got the 30% reduction from this talent, in addition to the already 50% area of effect damage reduction. So that's a 30% damage reduction and a 80% damage reduction of your area effect damage, which is the most prominent damage source for DPS during raid encounters. This is very nice to have for a lot of abilities in any raid, and I would recommend you use this more than Sheet Death if your healers are struggling, or if you know that you will be taking a lot of AoE damage during an encounter. I'd recommend Elusiveness. This is one of the talent tiers that I switch up based on the fight, and I'll never just leave it alone. I'll always consider the fight before I decide a talent on this tier. Next tier I also switch around quite a lot. It's the sort of mobility tier. We've got Cloak and Dagger. Your ambush, Garrote, Cheap Shot ports you to the target. This is very useless for Comet Rogue, since we almost never use these abilities, basically just subtly, that maybe could use this in raids. But for Comet Rogues we've got Shadow Step, which is very nice. It's a Rogue staple ability, and it's just really cool all around. I love using this ability. It's one of my favorite abilities. I love that all the Rogue specs has them. has it nowadays, and I'll use this ability like 90% of the time. Almost all raid encounters I'll be using this one, since it just ports you to the target. We've got sprint so often as a combat rogue, and it's just a generally very nice talent to have. So I'll use this most of the time, but burst of speed is also a very useful talent. The downside is that it costs energy, but the upside is that, well, you can have a constant sprint basically if you're willing to spend the energy, and if there's one thing combat rogues have, it's energy. So this is very nice. In addition, it also removes movement slowing effects, so you can use this to remove slows on fights, such as Heroic Malkorok, for example. The slimes slow you, and you can use this to speed up to move from things. It's just a very nice talent to have. I use this for Malkorok Heroic and for Thok Heroic, and Thok generally, since you can have a greater movement speed to run away from Thok into DPS Thok. It's just a very nice talent for fights like that. So Burst of Speed is a very valuable talent. I usually use Shadow Step, but always consider every fight and decide based on what you can use the most. Then we got a very non-interesting talent here. This is for like stuns and crowd control, and you'll want Prey on the Weak about 100% of the time. It increases the damage taken from all sources on anything that you've got kidney shot, sheep shotted, or gouged or sapped or anything. Basically, you can throw up your 8-second combat rogue kidney shot on the target, and it'll take 10% damage from everything in the raid, which is a very nice thing to have. Usually doesn't make that big difference, since kidney shot isn't the most used ability in raids, and you can't use it on bosses, but for ads and for the occasional stunnable boss, you will want this talent, since that's the only thing that will make a difference. Paralytic Poison will never make a difference, and neither will Dirty Tricks, or, well, I say never, but, well, almost never. And then we got the 90 level talent here, and this is very interesting. We've got Shuriken Toss, which replaces throw, and it basically makes our auto attacks ranged attacks, which is very cool. You see here, for this entire duration, all my auto attacks will be replaced by Shuriken Toss attacks that just does the same damage. So it basically makes us like a hunter for 9 seconds, which is 10 seconds, which is very cool. Problem is you can't use your finishers or anything during this time, so you'll be a subpar ranged DPS, but you'll be a ranged DPS nonetheless, which is sometimes very useful. So it's a very cool talent. Then you get Marked for Death, which will instantly give you 5 combo points on the target, and if the target dies, your Marked for Death will reset its cooldown. So that means that it's got a base cooldown of 1 minute, but if your target would die, then you will instantly reset this, which means that you can, on fights like spoils, you can just spam your Mark of Death, and you'll be able to just spam finishers, which is very nice for combat rogues, especially since it reduces the cooldown of our offensive cooldown abilities. So it's a very nice talent as well, but the last one is by far the coolest one. Anticipation. It basically gives us another 5 extra combo points to play around with. So when you get a full combo, I can't switch talents now because I've got a cooldown on Marked for Death, but when you get 5 combo points, it'll basically add on a stacking buff on yourself that stacks up to 5, and when you use an offensive finisher, that is a Rupture, a Eviscerate, or a Crimson Tempest, you will gain 5 additional combo points on the target if you have your buff stacked to 5. So let's check it out here. Come on, god damn it, that was stupid. Here, come on, there we go. Anticipation. So let's check it out. So you see here my combo points. I'll just get a slice up because no reason. So this is my combo points, and here you'll see my anticipation charges. So that's the charge count there. You'll see the buff up here as well, but I've got it set up over here with power hours. And you see now I have a 5 stacked anticipation charge as well as 5 combo points. So if I use my eviscerate now, I use the eviscerate, and my combo points will instantly, my anticipation charges instantly goes down to my combo points. The problem is that it doesn't work for things like slice and dice or anticipation. No, I mean recuperation. So if I use, it's only for offensive column. So you'll see here, I'll just refresh it. You'll see here if I use a slice and dice, my charges stays and I don't get any extra combo points. So you'll have to take that into account when using anticipation. But it's a very nice talent. I use this for like 90% of the fights. Maybe even more, since it's just so useful. It makes you able to pool your damage for later when you have more cooldowns up. It synergizes well with your bandage guile, which I'll go into in a later video, and it's just all around very nice to have. You can just save your combo points for when you have like trinket procs or stuff like that makes your damage higher. So it's a very nice talent. It helps you with lag and things like that, since you'll always have a full combo, and if you happen to just press Sinistrak once too many times, you'll not lose any combo points. It's so good. It's amazingly good. I love this talent. This is probably my favorite thing ever with Mr. Pandaria. It's just so nice to have, and I'd recommend if you're just out doing whatever, just keep anticipation. If you're not sure what a boss fight will have in store for you, just keep anticipation, since it's just all around a very nice talent to have. And if you know the fight, know what's gonna happen, and you know that Marked for Death or Shuriken Toss is gonna be useful in the fight, I'd switch that. But anticipation is just such a good talent, so keep that as much as you can. And yeah, that's all the talents. I think this is a good length for a video, so I'll do glyphs a bit later. But this has been part 2 of my Rue guide, and thanks for watching. If you got any feedback or any comments or questions, just throw me a message or leave them in the comments, whatever. Thank you so much. This has been Prowz. Bye bye.